Alrighty, we're going to do a double portion today, yesterday's and today, and we're moving on to the laws of Purim, taking a quiet little break from Shabbos. And that's the beauty of this schedule, is that it goes according to the time, the season. All right, so it's moving on to Simon 140, Kuf Mem. It's going to be a little bit backwards because we've already done some of these parshas, but this is the Arba parshas, the four parshas which the sages instituted in addition to the regular weekly Torah portion, but which we read at Shabbos. Additional portions are taken out 4 times of the year during these Shabboses. On these Shabbosim, 2 Sifrei Torah are taken out. We read from the first one, the regular portion of the week, and are we recording? Yeah, it's recording. We read in the regular one, so you do 7 aliyahs, and then the maftir is given from the second Sefer Torah. All right, so number 1 we've done already, but number 2 as well, but this is part of the quota. So the Shabbos that precedes Rosh Chodesh Adar, which is close to Nisan. Well, obviously it's close to Nisan. Obviously it's referring here to if there's a year in which there are 2 Adars. So it's the second Adar. We read Parsha Shkolim, which is actually from this week's Parsha Kitisa. If Rosh Chodesh Adar falls on Shabbos, then that day is Shabbos Parsha Shkolim. And then you take out 3 Sifrei Torah, right? 1 for the Parsha of the week, 1 for Rosh Chodesh, and then the other one, final one for Parsha Shkolim. Then it tells you how to do that. If you made a mistake and you read Parsha Shkolim first, before Rosh Chodesh, then he tells you what to do, etc., etc. Oops, I've gone to the next one by mistake. Number 2, that was yesterday. Shabbos before Purim is called Zocher. So there can be sometimes a gap, like there was this year between the first and the second. Last week's Parshas Truma, we did not have a special parsha. So, but this week, Shabbos before Purim is always Zocher. The Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh Nisan is called HaChodesh. We read about the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh. And then there is the 4th, which is actually the 3rd, and that is called Parshas Parah. Parshas Parah is always immediately the week before HaChodesh. So, but Parsha Zocher doesn't always fall out the week before Parah, but this year it does. So what we're going to do, so we've had Shkolim 2 weeks ago, we had Zocher yesterday, we're having Parah this coming Shabbos, and then it'll be Parsha HaChodesh. Some authorities rule, everybody holds that pretty much listening to Parsha Zocher is deraisa, is biblical. Some also hold that listening to Parshas Parah is also deraisa. That doesn't seem to be the prevailing, as he says there in footnote 17. Many authorities reject the view that obligation to read Parah is deraisa, say it's just rabbanon, and therefore a minor may not be called up as maftir, and indeed a minor may not read from the Torah, because you can only exempt someone if you yourselves are obligated. And since biblically a minor is not obligated, so therefore they cannot read for the minyan. Residents of settlements who do not have a minyan should make every single effort they can in order to hear Parsha Zocher, I guess next year. And if not, then they should read it with the proper cantillation. In other words, not with the bracha, but as if they're reading for the Torah themselves. Okay. The laws of Megillah reading. Simon 141. And we have to go today, because it's doing double Parsha, going all the way through law number 13. Okay, number 1. Mishaneknas Adar Marvim Asimcha, as we all know, it's a quote from the Mishnah in Tainis. When the month of Adar begins, we increase in joy. So how does that manifest itself? So for example, we have a special mazel in this month. So if a Jew has a legal dispute with a non-Jew, it's a good idea to try to do it this month. We have a legal dispute with the Iranians, so that's why we did it this month. That's my commentary. In the days of Mordechai and Esther, the Jews gathered on the 13th of the month of Adar to defend their lives and take vengeance on their enemies. And they had to plead for mercy from Hashem. May his name be blessed, that he should come to their aid. Now, we find that when the people of Israel went to battle, they fasted so that Hashem should help them. Also, Moshe Rabbeinu, Olav Shalom, fasted on that day that we fought Amalek, which is going to be tomorrow's Purim's Torah reading from Parshas Peshalach, which is mentioned in Exodus. And therefore, he says, presumably, we don't know, presumably in the days of Mordechai and Esther, they fasted on the 13th of Adar as well. So therefore, all of the Jewish people accepted that this day, i.e. tomorrow, as a public fast day called Tanis Esther. We fast ourselves not just to deprive, but to remind ourselves that Hashem, blessed be He, sees and listens to the prayers of each person in his times of distress when he fasts and returns to Hashem with all his heart, just as he did for our forefathers in those days. Nevertheless, it's not as strict of an obligation as the other four fasts throughout the rest of the year. So, for example, Tisha B'Av, Asar B'Teves, or Shavas B'Tammuz. What's the other one? Can't remember. And so, therefore, one who you can be some Gedalia. Therefore, one may be lenient in this fast in a case of need, such as for pregnant or nursing women, or even if you're slightly ill with a pain in your eyes. If these people are in great distress, then they should not fast. Similarly, a woman who is 30 days after giving birth, as well as someone who is, let's say somebody had got married, so they're in their Sheva brachas, they do not have to fast, but they have to make up for it another day. However, others who are healthy should fast so as not to separate themselves from the community, and even one who is traveling and finds it difficult to fast, they should still do so. Number 3, the 14th day of Adar is Purim, as we know. If Purim falls on a Sunday, we bring the fast forward to a Thursday. If a circumcision has taken place on that Thursday, they should hold a circumcision meal after the fast at night. However, the Sandik and the father of the child are permitted to eat the day because it's not the 13th. And they do not need to fast on Friday. Another person who forgot about the fast and ate on Thursday should fast on Friday instead. Number 4. What do we do when it comes to the Megillah reading? So in honor of the Megillah reading, we wear our Shabbos clothes on Purim evening and Purim day as well. When you come home from shul tomorrow night, you should find the candles burning in your house. You should have the table set. It should look nice. The Ma'ariv prayers are as follows. After, of course, you add on Nissim, you say Kaddish, Tiskabel, then we read the Megillah, then after we say Atar Kadosh and Aleinu, etc. Okay. Then it's Megillah. Rabbi Hushua ben Levi said, a person who is obligated to read the Megillah at night, repeated during the day, as it says, God, I call out by day and you do not answer, by night and there is no respite for me. And adjacent to that verse, it says, in Psalm 22, Alata Kaddish. After this prayer is recited, the Chazan recites full Kaddish, but without Tiskabel. If it's on Motzei Shabbos, which it isn't this year, so whatever. Number 5, before Purim, it is customary tomorrow to donate as a remembrance of the Machzis shekel, the half shekel coin, that is the denomination that is currently in that region. It's interesting. So in England, there is no such thing as a half a pound. There's 50p, hence it's not half a pound, so you cannot give that. In America, there is a half a dollar, so that's what you give. Why do we do this? In commemoration of the half shekel that the Jewish people donated in the month of Adar, during the times of the Beis Hamikdash, for the purpose of funding the communal offerings, which is mentioned also in today's Chitas. The custom is to give 3 halves. If it's just to give half a shekel, why do we just not give 1 half? So no, we give 3. Why? Because in today's Chitas, Parshas Kitisa, the mitzvah of half a shekel is stated. The word truma, which means a donation, is stated 3 times. We give it in the afternoon. He says evening before Megillah reading. So actually we don't. So that's what he says in footnote 15. Unlike what he says, the custom is to give it on Tanis before Mincha. And the funds are distributed to the poor. A minor is exempt from the requirement, but if his father donated even once on his behalf, he's obligated to give on his behalf forever until the kid, grows up and becomes obligated himself. Regarding one who is 13 years old, some authorities say he is obligated, some say he's exempt until he is actually 20. As you notice in today's Kittas, the census only counted those who are over 20. Number 6, on Purim, the 14th of Adar, during Ma'ariv, Shacharis, and Mincha, we recite Al Hanisim in Modim. If you forgot, it's the same laws as applies to those on Hanukkah. Look back over that. Number 7, all people, both men and women, are obligated to hear the reading of the Megillah on Purim by night and by day. Therefore, even unmarried girls should go to the synagogue to hear the Megillah. If they do not go, then they have to go to a place where it is read. We're obligated to educate children to hear the Megillah reading. Nevertheless, very small children should not be brought to the synagogue because they're going to disturb the concentration and you have to hear every single word. Number 8, it's forbidden to begin the nighttime reading of the Megillah before nightfall. It has to be done after night. So wait, we're fasting and we can't eat before the Megillah. So what are you supposed to do? And this is even if you're tremendously in distress. However, according to the strict letter of the law, because the fast is over, you're allowed to partake of a small bit of food and drink before the Megillah reading, such as a coffee or like, in order to be strengthened a bit for the weakness of the fast. Many people don't, and they just break their fast after hearing Megillah. Number 9, it's the best way to form the mitzvah is to hear the Megillah reading in synagogue with a lot of people around. Why? Why not just by myself? I could read it myself at home. The answer is because there's a pasuk in Mishlei and Proverbs, Berov Am, Hadras Melech. Proverbs says, in a multitude of people is the glory of the king. Performing mitzvahs with the participation of many people brings greater glory to Hashem. If that's not possible, you should see to it, you should hear at least with a minyan of men. If it's not possible to read with a minyan, every person should read it with them by themselves from their own kosher Megillah with the preceding blessings, which is interesting. 1 second here. It says over here. Number 28, footnote, when there is a minyan, one person reads the Megillah, the rest are exempted from his reading. However, some authorities rule that where there is no minyan and each person knows how to read the Megillah on his own, one person cannot exempt the others with the reading of the Megillah. Therefore, it's a right that each person should read it himself from a valid Megillah. If a person knows how to read it and others do not, the one who knows should read it, the other should listen, fulfill the mitzvah, even if they're not in a minyan. However, the blessing after the Megillah is only said when there is a minyan. Nevertheless, you should say it, but without saying Hashem's name. Number 10, the custom of the Jewish people is that the reader does not read from a rolled up scroll. Rather, he spreads it out and doubles the pages over, as you see when the Balkora takes it. He's rolling it and moving it and all sorts of stuff. Why? Because it should be like a letter. Why should it be like a letter? Because it says in the Megillah in chapter 9, it's called the letter of Purim. However, those who are listening do not need to spread out the Megillahs if they're following from a Megillah. The one who reads the Megillah, number 11, both by day and night, says 3 brachas, Al Mikra Megillah, She'asa Nisim, and Shechiyanu. After he's completed the reading, he should roll it up completely, place it before him, and then recite the bracha of Harav Esrivenu, who takes up our grievance. If a mourner reads a Megillah, someone else should recite the blessings before the reading, because a mourner should not recite Shechiyanu. Number 12, during the recitation of Shechiyanu and Purim, when the bracha is recited, the person saying it and the people listening should have in mind that the Shechiyanu covers the mitzvahs of Mashlach Manos, of the gifts, Matanos Yonim, charity, and the Purim meal. Likewise, the Chazan who recites the brachas before the reading should have in mind to exempt the congregation from reciting this blessing for these mitzvahs. Right. And finally, for today, 13, the one who is reading the Megillah for the congregation should have in mind to exempt all those who are listening from their obligation. One who is listening must also have in mind to fulfill his obligation for the person who's reading it, and to take care to hear every word, for even if he missed hearing just one word, he has not fulfilled his obligation. Footnote 35, if he spoke during the Megillah reading, preventing him from hearing the reader at that time, he must hear the Megillah again. However, if he spoke when the reader paused and he did not miss a word, although it is prohibited to do so, he has fulfilled his obligation. Likewise, if the reader omitted a word, he must return to where he skipped and continue from there. It is not sufficient to repeat the word or verse, since the entire Megillah must be read in order. If he did not say the Megillah must be repeated from the beginning. With regard to repeating the blessings, see elsewhere. Therefore, the reader must pay close attention to ensure that while they are making noise and commotion when banging upon hearing Harmon's name, he should remain silent until the noise has completely subsided. Nevertheless, it is proper to recite each word himself, because he may miss one word from the reader. One who does 37, what does that mean? I should say it along with him. Look at 37. One who does not have a valid Megillah should make sure at least to have a printed edition of the Megillah in front of him, so that if he misses a word, he can read from that Megillah the words that he missed. Very important. You don't have to have a kosher Megillah to fill in certain words you missed. The only prohibition is if, as long as you're not saying 51% of the Megillah from your own printed one, you're in good shape, and hopefully you would have got it right, you would have heard it. So if you thought you don't hear the word properly, say the word quickly and then catch up to where and hear the rest from the person who's reading. Likewise, every wise woman who is standing in the women's gallery, if possible, it's good practice for her to have a valid Megillah to read from, because it is difficult to hear every word of the Megillah over there. Hopefully not so here in Arshals. And women are as obligated to hear Megillah as men are. What about Kiddush Levana? If you didn't say Kiddush Levana yet before the Megillah, and the moon became visible during the Megillah reading, there's a whole different discussion about what comes first, what you should do, etc.